History of my oldest ancestors of whom I am very proud descend. November 16th, 1093. Dies, at Edinburgh Castle, St. Margaret of Scotland, Queen Consort of Scotland, my 31st grandmother, 3 times my grandmother, wife of King Malcolm III of Scotland, great-great-grandmother of the Kings of England, Richard Lionheart and John Landless, and 5th grandmother of Dom Afonso III, King of Portugal. St. Margaret of Scotland, or Margaret of Wessex, Queen Consort of Scotland, was born in Hungary in 1050 and died at Edinburgh Castle on November 16, 1093. She was the daughter of Edward Atheling, the exiled, and Agatha Belungen, princess from Hungary, paternal granddaughter of Edmund II, Ironside, King of England and King of the Saxons, and Ealdgyth, Edith, of Northumbria, and maternal granddaughter of Ludolf Belungen, Earl of Brunswick, and Gertrude von Nordgau. St. Margaret of Scotland, or Margaret of Wessex, was Queen Consort of Scotland as wife of Malcolm III, King of Scotland, my 31st grandfather, 3 times my grandfather. Biography. St. Margaret of Scotland was the daughter of Edward Atheling, the exiled, heir to the throne of England. Thus, she was the granddaughter of King Edmund Ironside. His father had fled the Normans with Agatha Belungen, his wife, as well as his son, the true King of England, Edgar of Wessex, later Crusader, and therefore brother of St. Margaret. A sister of his, Christina, was a nun in Romsey. His mother, Agatha, was related to Gisela, wife of St. Stephen of Hungary and Henry II, Holy Roman Emperor. Tradition says that his father and uncle Edmund went to Hungary for safety during the reign of the Viking Canute II of Denmark, but no record is found in Hungary. Margaret returned around 1057 to the court of Edward the Confessor, King of England. 10 years later, after the Battle of Hastings, she ran away with her brother and married, against her wishes. After her father died during the conquest of England by the Normans, her mother Agatha Belungen, Princess of Hungary, decided to return to the continent, but a storm destroyed her ship in Scotland, where they were welcomed by Malcolm III, who decided to take her as his wife. Margaret wanted to be a nun. The marriage must have taken place between 1067 and 1070. She was a devout queen and much loved by the people as she changed the court's manners and behavior patterns. The nobles were forbidden to get drunk, and he used the kingdom's money to help the poor, feed them, give them shelter. He encouraged foreign trade and founded monasteries and churches, including Dunfermline Abbey, built to house his greatest treasure, a relic of the true cross of Christ. He restored Iona Abbey on the island of Iona, which had been founded by St. Columba. His Gospel or Book of Hours, richly adorned with jewels, one day fell into a river and was miraculously recovered, and is now in the Bodleian Library at Oxford. With his marriage he brought the Roman and Celtic churches together. He convened a synod that produced new regulations for Easter fasting, communion, and some abuses regarding marriages in prohibited degrees of kinship. She Anglicized and refined the court and her husband with her virtues, modesty, rare beauty, patience and sweetness. She softened her husband's manners, and converting the king is converting the kingdom. The husband was illiterate and rude and became Christian and kind, and her 3 sons reigned afterwards, and in them the mother inspired love for God, contempt for earthly vanities and horror of sin. St. Margaret of Scotland died on November 16, 1093. At Edinburgh Castle, and her body was buried before the high altar of Dunfermline Abbey, in Fife, next to her husband King Malcolm III of Scotland. St. Margaret's Chapel in Edinburgh Castle. St. Margaret's Chapel is the oldest building in Edinburgh Castle, 12th century. It is said that St. Margaret of Scotland prayed here, but research indicates that it was erected at the beginning of the 12th century by her 4th son, who would become King David I, reigned from 1124 to 1153. Its architecture has references to the first Celtic chapels. With the Protestant Reformation, the chapel began to be used as a gunpowder magazine, until arrangements were made in 1929 to adapt it to religious celebrations. Queen St. Margaret of Scotland was canonized in 1250 or 1251 by Pope Innocent IV and is celebrated on November 16th. His relics were transferred on the 19th of June, 1259 to a new sanctuary, the base of which can be seen in the modern eastern wall of the restored church. During the Reformation, his skull came to belong to Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, and later to the Jesuits of Douai, and is believed to have been destroyed in the French Revolution. George Con, author of the book De Duplici Statu Religionis Apud Scots, Rome 1628, believes that the rest of the relics, as well as those of her husband, King Malcolm, were purchased by Philip II of Spain, Philip I of Portugal, and placed in 2 urns in Escorial. But when, in the 19th century, Bishop Gillies of Edinburgh asked Pope Pius IX for their return, they were not found. Family and descent. Children from the marriage of St. Margaret of Scotland to King Malcolm III, my 31st grandfather, 3 times my grandfather. Edward of Scotland. Edgar, King of Scotland. Alexander I, King of Scotland, married to Sybil of Normandy. St. David I, King of Scotland, married to Maud, Countess of Huntingdon. Matilda of Scotland married to Henry I, King of England, my 30th grandparents, thrice my grandparents. Mary, Princess of Scotland married to Eustace III, Earl of Bologna. Edmund of Scotland, Prince of Cumbria, married to, unknown. Ethelred of Scotland.